Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Elise Zenick, and it's my pleasure to welcome everyone here today on behalf of Edmonton Global. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are hosting this event on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route for the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. I would also like to acknowledge that Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland is joining us from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have cared for this land for centuries. I'd like to thank Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland for inviting Edmonton Region Youth to have this important conversation today. Chrystia grew up here in Alberta and attended one of our local high schools. I also grew up here, and I'm proud to be from a place that is so diverse and rich in culture, ideas, and community. I currently work with Edmonton Global as a marketing and communications intern. Our work here revolves around attracting investment into the Edmonton metropolitan region. Our goal is to build a regional economy that young people won't need to leave in order to be successful. Part of the way that we do that is by sharing the stories of some of the exciting things that are already happening here. These are incredible stories to tell, especially about resiliency and what our youth is doing in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's incredible creativity and innovation here. And despite the fact that youth have been hard hit by the pandemic, young people are persevering to adapt and find creative solutions. As we bring these stories to the world, we've developed a tagline that's based on our international airport code, YEG. We are young, educated, and growing. The Edmonton region is young. We're one of the youngest communities in Canada and have been ranked as the best place in Canada for youth and youth work. The Edmonton region is educated. We have 7 post-secondary institutions with more than 130,000 students and nearly 30,000 graduating students every single year. Young people here are talented. They're innovators, creators, risk takers who are working to improve their communities and solve some of the world's biggest problems. The Edmonton region is growing. We are the fastest growing region in Canada, and we're Canada's most entrepreneurial city. And this is true of the youth here too. We're ranked 3rd globally for artificial intelligence research and are recognized world leaders in reinforcement and deep learning. And we're also green. Youth in Edmonton are passionate about building a carbon neutral future and providing solutions to the world's climate crisis. Young people have been disproportionately affected by this pandemic, but we are incredibly resilient and are excited to share our vision for the future during this event. I'm pleased to introduce Sophia Alani as our moderator. Sophia is project manager at Reach Edmonton. She serves as co-chair of the Oscars Film Festival Foundation and is the co-founder of the Muslim Feminist Collective of Edmonton. Sophia, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elise. Hello, everyone. So as Elise already mentioned, my name is Sophia, and I will be moderating the panel this afternoon. She kind of already talked about what I do for work, but with my work with Reach Edmonton, where I work as a project manager, I work on a few different projects, but my main one involves working with and supporting organizations that provide programming for vulnerable children and youth in the hopes of giving these young people the tools and resources they need for success. So I'm so excited to be here with all these incredible people. And so let's get started. So we're gathered here today. Just kidding, we're not at a wedding. We have come together today to discuss the future of young people across the country in a post-pandemic world. We know that youth and young people were the age group that was most affected by the pandemic. They experienced a lot of disruption to their education, their careers, and their social lives. And we also know that all this led to some intense effects on their mental health. A lot of inequities that have existed in our community for a long time were also exacerbated by the circumstances of the pandemic. If anything, this past 15 months has highlighted the need for us to show up for one another, for advocacy, for equity, and for justice. And that, in short, is what we are here to discuss. What are the issues that are top of mind for our young people, and how is the federal government going to show up for them? We're here to talk about how they are going to ensure equity and equal access to opportunities for young people from from racialized backgrounds or who have mental health issues or with disabilities or who have lost their jobs? How are they going to invest in our economy and ensure a greener future for us and our families? I think we all know that we need to move forward together and ensure that equity and sustainability remain key priorities for our government, and I'm excited to hear about how that might look. With that in mind, we are joined by some incredible panelists who will introduce themselves shortly, who have a vested interest in this topic and who are some of the coolest people I've ever met. But first, I will pass it along to our special guest today, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland. First elected to the House of Commons in 2013, Chrystia has also served as Canada's Minister of International Trade, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Before this, she was an esteemed journalist and author. Chrystia's roots are in Alberta, having been born in Peace River on her family's farm, and subsequently spending much of her childhood in Edmonton. It's great to have you back here, Deputy Prime Minister. Over to you.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Hi Edmonton. And I really, really wish that I could be with you in person. As Sophia just said, I am a very proud daughter of Alberta. I went to school for a lot of years of my childhood in Edmonton. I think Navia also went to Old Scona, so let me just offer a shout out to that amazing high school. And so far, I went, since COVID started, I went to the G7 meeting 2 weeks ago in London. In fact, I am still in quarantine in my attic right now. But apart from that, I haven't left Ontario. And I want to say to you guys, my first trip outside the province when we're sort of allowed and encouraged to travel is going to be to Alberta and to Edmonton. So maybe I'll be able to meet some of you guys in person. I'm mostly keen to hear from all of you, to hear your stories, to hear what you want the government to do, and to try to answer your questions. But let me start by just saying a couple of things. First of all, I do want to say to you, because this is a group of young people, I am very, very conscious, and perhaps being a mother of teenagers makes me particularly conscious of this, of the extent to which young people in Canada have borne a disproportionate share of the burden of the fight against COVID. You guys have been locked up at a time in your life when you especially need to be out there and to be with other people. And you have been launching your adult lives in the greatest recession since the Great Depression. And I really am aware of the sacrifice you've made for the rest of us, because you've done all this in the face of a pandemic, which poses the greatest health threat for people who are older. So I do want to say to you, thank you very much. Young Edmontonians, young Albertans, young Canadians have been really, really great. And as someone who's going to turn 53 this summer, I recognize the sacrifice your generation has made for mine. And also, you know, my mom is dead now, very sadly, but for my father, and my aunts and uncles, many of whom live in Edmonton. So thanks a lot. And I also want to make a commitment to you, which is, as finance minister, one of my priorities in putting together the budget was to be sure that today's generation of young Canadians, that you guys were not a lost generation. There is a lot of economic evidence that suggests that to graduate, to come of age during a recession, can have a lifelong impact on your life chances. And it can have an impact, you know, not only on your lifetime earnings, but on things like the chance that you get married, the chance that you have children, even on your longevity. So when we were building the budget, I said to myself and my team, that is not going to happen to this generation of young Canadians. And that is why one of the cornerstones of the budget is really significant support for young Canadians. Significant support in the form of expanded grants and easier loan provisions for students, including decreasing the amount that you have to pay back and raising the ceiling of income below which you don't need to start paying back your loans, because we know that helping you guys get an education is the best way to build the future for our country. Also, really significant job and training opportunities, more than 200,000 job and training opportunities contained in the budget. And, my real belief of the job of the budget right now is finish the fight against COVID. We're not quite there yet, but we're nearly there. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And then drive towards a really strong, really robust economic recovery, because a strong economic recovery is going to be something that you can all participate in, and actually that you guys will all drive. I am also really, really mindful of the fact that the wounds of COVID have been entirely uneven. They have hit, COVID has hit primarily young people, women, low wage workers, and racialized Canadians. And so the budget very much is built from a recognition of that and is around healing those wounds and supporting those Canadians. And that means you guys. Alors, je veux vraiment vous remercier. Sophie a parlé de votre résilience et je suis complètement d'accord. Je pense que c'est grâce à votre résilience que le Canada, l'Alberta, Edmonton se trouve dans une position si forte aujourd'hui. Aujourd'hui, quand on voit la lumière au bout du tunnel, merci. Et ce sera un plaisir et vraiment un privilège pour moi de travailler avec vous et de vous aider à vraiment avoir une relance économique forte pour Edmonton et pour tout le pays. And just in closing, I wouldn't feel right without recognizing the horrific terrorist attack in London, Ontario. And I know that particularly visibly Muslim women and girls in Edmonton, hijabis, have been attacked and are particularly vulnerable right now. I think Elise mentioned her pride in Edmonton as an astonishingly diverse city. And I'm proud of that too. That's the city that I grew up in. And even when it comes to the Muslim community, I'm sure you guys, as proud Edmontonians, all know that the Al Rashid Mosque in Edmonton is the first mosque built in Canada. It was almost the first mosque built in North America, but it took a little longer to get it built than people had thought. And actually, the history of that mosque speaks a lot to the multicultural roots of Edmonton, because as a Ukrainian Canadian from Edmonton, I've always been proud of the fact that that mosque was built by a Ukrainian Canadian contractor. Because when the Muslims in Edmonton looked around and they said, hey, we want to build a mosque, who's going to know how to do it? They looked at the Ukrainian churches and they were like, that kind of looks like a mosque. Those guys are going to be able to help. So multiculturalism and our diverse communities working together has been a part of Edmonton for a long, long time. But these terror attacks, which are the result of Islamophobia, which are the result of white supremacy, they show us that for all the remarkable, amazing things about Edmonton and about Alberta and about Canada, there is still a lot of work we have to do. And it is completely unacceptable for this kind of terrorism to happen in our country, and for hijabi Canadians to feel unsafe walking on the streets. So I just wanted to recognize that, and to really say, I know that there's a lot more we have to do to change this. Keen to hear your ideas about that and anything else. Okay, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much, Chrystia. So as I mentioned before, we've got some incredible panelists joining us, and so I'm going to turn it over to them shortly. They will have an opportunity to introduce themselves, their organization, and ask their question and have a bit of a conversation with the Deputy Prime Minister. And each panelist will have about 5 minutes or so. And after we've gone through all of the panelists, we will then have an opportunity for live questions from the audience, as well as a chance to answer some of the pre-submitted questions from people who registered for the event. So I will pass it along to our first panelist, who is Cecile from Skills Canada, Alberta.
Hello, thank you. My name is Cecile Buckmeyer. First off, I would like to thank you for your time today, Chrystia, and it's an honor to virtually meet you. I've spent the last 8 years working alongside Skills Canada, Alberta in their youth skilled trade competitions, predominantly in car painting. I've had the opportunity to interact with junior high and high school students to show trade career opportunities and share my passion for vehicle repair. In 2016, I started an instructor position at NATE, teaching the auto body apprenticeship. Almost every day, I get to talk to students and share struggles and accomplishments in our careers. Over the past year, there has been a common theme in conversations about COVID impacts, and that is mostly around job security. It's concerning that even though their job position may have been deemed essential, many were still laid off. It left them feeling like they could not move forward with their career, or if they did, there was no benefit to them. I often hear this sort of concern when students come to the end of their apprenticeship. And I've been in the same position and had to ask myself, what happens after certification? How can I ensure to stay relevant in a fast-changing world without the threat of losing my job? So my question to you is, while there is resources available to encourage youth to attend post-secondary or pursue trade certification, what kind of resources and initiatives are available to support youth in the steps they take after finishing post-secondary education? Resources that will help make them more employable, help them to upskill, or encourage them to pursue a dual ticket?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Cecile, for your question and for your hard work. My brother went to NATE, so I know how important the work you do is and how great to see a woman teaching there. One of the things that I think is really important, as a feminist and as someone who really believes in encouraging participation of women in the labor force, is for more women to work in the skilled trades. So you're a real trailblazer there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Really, really important. And actually, I don't know if you've heard about this. With Mona Fortier, I co-chair a task force on women in the economy. And one of the recommendations of the women on that task force has been to say we need to encourage more women and girls to learn the skilled trades. And I really agree with that. So anyway, thanks a lot. Great to meet you.
Thank you.
You ask a really great question because for sure, step one is to create the conditions to make it as easy as possible for young people to get an education, whether that is a skilled trade, whether that is NATE or U of A or Grant MacEwan. We need to make that as easy as possible. And that's why the budget includes really significant increase in student grants, interest forgiveness, and making it easier to repay your loans. So I want to say that here because if people have been thinking, well, I'd really like to go get more of an education, but I don't know if I can afford it, please take a look because it's more affordable now than ever. But you're also right, Cecile. That's only half the story. We have to be sure that once people get those skills and those qualifications, that leads to a job and a future. Part of the answer is being sure that student loans are not a burden on building your life. And so that's why one of the things that I personally was really pushed for in the budget is you don't have to start paying your student loan off until you're making $40,000 at least. And the cap on repayment is 10% of your income. So that's just to make it a little bit easier. Another thing that we've done is create, well, I say we have done, but we need the budget to actually get passed in Parliament. Here's the budget book right here. I have it with me at all times because I'm so proud of it. But we need to actually get the budget passed in Parliament. So please encourage your MPs to get that job done. But once we get it passed, the budget is going to create more than 200,000 work experience and apprenticeship opportunities. Those will be especially helpful for young Canadians. And there is a really big focus, Cecile, on the apprenticeship side of things. And then the final thing I'm going to say, and I'm really glad that we have, I'm looking at Mavi right now. Hi, Mavi, because I'm going to say, you know, one of the things that young people can do and young people are really good at is being entrepreneurs and forming their own businesses. And there are particular forms of support in the budget for entrepreneurs overall, but with a special focus on women, Indigenous, and visible minority entrepreneurs, because we know that access to capital for people in those three categories can be harder. And so we want to try to remove some of those barriers and give you a little bit of a boost. I could talk about this for hours,
Excellent.
but I think that's maybe sufficient for now.
Yeah, thank you.
And can I ask you a question, Cecile?
Yeah.
What is it like for you being a woman who's an instructor at NAIT? And do you have a lot of young women students? And how do they feel about going into the skilled trades?
Wow. It feels, honestly, it feels awesome to be instructing in my position. I was one of the first females in that position. And when I have women coming in, sometimes they tell me, you know, I didn't think that this was a place for me until I seen you, or I'm so happy that you're my instructor because I wasn't sure if I could succeed in this industry. And that's why I took the position, so I could show women that first off, they're not alone. I can connect you guys together. And you can be definitely 100% successful in the trades, in any trade. So thank you.
Well, you're a great role model, and it's exciting for me to meet you. I want to mention one other thing. Just as you were talking, I remembered you talked about essential workers losing their jobs. And I believe very strongly that one of the things that the COVID pandemic revealed really starkly was it kind of told us who was essential and who was less essential. And I think we learned that some of the most essential people in our society are people who are paid the least and have the least protection. And, you know, shame on us as a society if we don't learn that lesson. So I just want to remind you guys that there are some concrete measures in the budget to help low wage workers. There's a $15 an hour federal minimum wage. And probably one of the programs that I'm the most excited about is nearly $9 billion we've added to the Canada Worker Benefit. This is income top-ups for people who are working but are living in poverty. And so with these income top-ups, an additional 1 million people in Canada will be eligible for this benefit. And it's going to lift 100,000 low-wage workers out of poverty. So I just want to say to low-wage essential workers, I hear you, and I believe we need to do more to support you. So thanks for raising that point, Cecile. Very important, I think.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Cecile. Next, we've got Maz from Bad Films.
Hello, Chrystia, and actually everyone else. Really excited to be, part of this panel and talking to everyone. So first of all, I guess I'll start by introducing myself. I'm a Lebanese Canadian, jack of all trades, really, like singer, songwriter, editor, and filmmaker. Do a lot of short form documentary filmmaking, and also a lot of live streams and content creation and around all that kind of stuff. So I guess my question is, it's really around community, and I'll just kind of jump right into it. So, as a content creator in Edmonton, I'm constantly creating and collaborating with other creatives in my city. And the pandemic has fundamentally limited those interactions that the youth strives to be able to push boundaries and innovate ideas in arts and culture. So with the pandemic normalizing isolation and social media consumption among the youth, how can we not only encourage our youth to get out and participate in our communities post-pandemic, but also inform them of local initiatives going on to, encourage them a little bit to kind of break out of their silos?
Well, first of all, hi, Maz. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And what great work you're doing. I think it's a really important question. And if I could start on a really personal note, one of my children is very active in this child's school and was doing some peer-to-peer counseling. And the theme was sort of officially like culture reform in the school to make the school less racist. And not that the school is particularly racist, but, to work on issues of racism and support Indigenous people in Canada. But before they did this peer-to-peer counseling, they did a survey of the kids and said, what do you guys really want to talk about? And they said, we want to talk about how do you ask someone to be your friend? And how do you hang out with someone? Because these poor teenagers have spent a lot of a year just in their houses with their parents. And I'm a parent. I love having my kids around a lot. But I think you make a really good point about the social isolation, Maz. And I think we need to work on it. And you are a big part of the answer. I think culture and community events are going to bring us together this summer. I'm a big believer that we want to be careful about our reopening. We've come too far and sacrificed too much to blow it by being precipitate, but we're all getting vaccinated really fast. And it's looking
I
good.
got my first shot actually, so really looking forward to getting that next one.
Well, bravo. I've had my first shot too. I had AstraZeneca, and I'm looking forward to getting the next one
Congrats.
too.
Congrats.
Thank
Congrats.
So, I do want to sound that just a little bit a note of caution.
Right.
But having said that, I really believe this needs to be the summer that Canadians break out of our hibernation and hang out with each other.
Right.
And actually, I think Edmonton is one of the best summer cities in the world.
Sure is.
Like the Fringe Festival, Klondike Days. I mean, my kids actually try to spend as much of the summer as they can in Edmonton with our family because it's so wonderful. I know, though, that Canada's creators and our arts organizations were really hit hard by COVID. And so there is really significant funding in the budget to kind of kickstart that summer of festivals. And I encourage you, and you should apply for it. Get your friends to apply for it. This is something that's going to have a big social benefit and also a real economic benefit. And, the funding is for festivals, for local community arts organizations, and for cultural events.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maz. Next, we've got Levi from the Alberta Native Friendship Center.
Don't say hello. Levi Wolf Sigason. Ega Vijigas Kose Sagegane Wuchinia. Hello, my name is Levi Wolf, and I am from Onion Lake Cree Nation. And it is an honor to be here with you, Chrystia. And I am currently living in Bimichasqueya-Sik, which is Lloydminster in Cree. I am currently a youth coordinator at the Lloydminster Native Friendship Center and the current chair of the Alberta Native Friendship Center, Alberta Aboriginal Youth Council. So this year I just graduated from Lakeland College. I have received my associate's diploma, and I will be attending U of A in Alberta for the fall of 2021 to continue my education. I've had many opportunities, including participating in an initiative called Rise Up, empowering urban Indigenous youth. I have participated in training and learning opportunities that help promote the agenda and meaningful outcomes of UNDRIP and the 94 calls to action from the TRC. So the Alberta Native Friendship Center Association supports its 21 member friendship centers in creating safe, friendly, welcoming, status-blind urban hubs that provide culturally appropriate programs and services and create opportunities for urban Indigenous people and communities to become empowered, to enhance their leadership skills, and to be fully engaged and involved in community development. Friendship centers engage with and improve the quality of life for urban Indigenous people. The ANFCA's work is guided by the values and principles of the Truth and Reconciliation 94 Calls to Action and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which is UNDRIP. So urban Indigenous youth face significant barriers, and this has only been heightened during the COVID-19 pandemic. My vision for a post-pandemic country is one in which urban Indigenous youth are healthy, thriving, and fully engaged by the government in decision-making processes that affect us. UNDRIP and the TRC calls to actions are key to achieving this and supporting reconciliation. The TRC call to action number 66 states, we call upon the federal government to establish multi-year funding for community-based youth organizations to deliver programs on reconciliation and establish a national network to share information and best practices. Aside from the Canadian Roots Exchange and Canadian Service Corps, how will the government implement the TRC call to action number 6 to more meaningfully engage and support Indigenous organizations and youth to lead reconciliations on a grassroots level?
Okay, well, thank you. Is it Levi? Is that pronounced correctly?
Yes, Levi, yeah.
Levi, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Levi. Great to talk to you. And congratulations on getting into U of A. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Really, really great. Look, I think that you raise a number of really, really important issues. And I think I should start by saying that the finding in Kamloops, I think, is yet another reminder of how much work we have to do on reconciliation in Canada, and of how deep the damage that is done goes and is. I am really hopeful that as a country, we're so different from how we were when I was growing up, before you were born. but I think I really believe, and I think this is especially true among younger Canadians, that we have understood that an essential project for the whole country has to be the work of reconciliation. And I think we've understood that it's going to take some time. You know, the damage was done over hundreds of years, and the healing is going to take some time, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of investment. The budget invests $18 billion in supporting Indigenous people in Canada. But I think you raised a particular area where I think there is a lot of work to be done, and that is on urban Indigenous youth. And I will actually say, I would also add particular concern on urban Indigenous youth, urban Indigenous young women and girls. That is a part of the Indigenous community in Canada that sometimes gets overlooked with sort of systems that we have. And actually, I've already mentioned the Task Force on Women in the Economy, but we have some strong Indigenous women on that task force, including a Friendship Center leader. And pretty much every meeting we have, she raises the specific issues that urban Indigenous people face. So I just want to say we have done significant work up to this budget. There's significant funding in the budget, but I really believe there is more to be done. And I'm going to add one more point that you sort of alluded to, but I think is an important, really important part of the urban Indigenous work. And that is housing. Especially, you know, in a city like Edmonton, this is true in a city like Winnipeg or Saskatoon as well, across the prairies. People who are underhoused, vulnerable people who need more housing in cities are disproportionately Indigenous. And so solving the housing crisis is part of improving life for Indigenous people in cities and Indigenous young people. And there I do want to say, I want to give Edmonton a real shout out there, where you're moving, Levi, because I think the work that Edmonton has done on really committing to ending homelessness is trailblazing in Canada. Just a couple of days ago, I was talking to Don Iveson, who has really been leading the charge there. And as a federal government, we're glad to support him with some funding to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Big witch.
Yeah, hi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Levi. Next, we've got Navya from Girls 20 and Women in Business.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Chrystia. I'm Navya Baradi. I'm a business student here at the U of A, and I'm so honored to be a part of this event this afternoon. Since high school, I've been passionate about community engagement and specifically with economic inclusion. So I've been trying to get involved with lots of different grassroots initiatives to promote that, one of them being Women in Business at the U of A. But last year, I represented Canada at the Girls 20 Global Summit to bring forth suggestions to the G20 on including young women in economic recovery. And since then, I've been researching and having more important conversations about what national and provincial economic inclusion even looks like. But what I want to focus on today is that 80% of young women, including many of my peers, were working in hospitality and retail, which were the first sectors to close and the last ones to start opening up. Paired with rising post-secondary tuition fees and a lack of race and gender disaggregated data that can show this gap, young women face greater barriers for the same financial opportunities as other demographics. And we're also seeing a rise in racially motivated hate crimes, specifically against Muslim women and Indigenous women and girls. Considering this reality, how can we ensure an intersectional and multifaceted approach to economic recovery where young women are not left behind?
Well, hi, Navya. So nice to meet you. My fellow Old Scona graduate. So nice. And every single point you make is right and important. And I guess the first thing I would say is we can ensure an intersectional approach by taking an intersectional approach, right? And, sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's the picture we put on the front of the budget for a reason. I said at the outset, and it is really true, that the hardest, the economic impact of COVID has been entirely uneven. The hardest hit groups are youth, women, low-waged workers, particularly racialized and Indigenous. And if that's where the wounds are, that's where the healing needs to be. And this budget is very much directed at providing support there. That's one of the reasons that I mentioned the Canada Workers Benefit, topping up people who are working for a low wage, and the $15 an hour minimum wage. Also really important, some people, a really important element of our economic strategy in the recovery is to run what some economists call a high pressure economy. I want our recovery to be fast and strong and robust, because that is one of the ways that you lift up the people, the friends you were talking about, Navia, people in tourism and in hospitality. If you have an economy that is adding a lot of jobs really quickly, that is going to help the people doing those jobs. And we've added an additional program, the Canada Recovery Hiring Credit. This is additional top-up support to businesses to encourage them to take the risk to either hire a new person, to have the people who work there work additional hours, because I talk to a lot of people who aren't working as many hours as they would like, or to increase the wages of the people they have working there already. I'm going to mention two other things quickly, because you are, a leader in young women in business and entrepreneurship. And I think that it is so important to encourage women, especially young women, to go into business, to be entrepreneurs. And even today, and it shocks me that this is still a thing. Like, my mother was a feminist in Alberta in the late 60s and early 70s. And I think that she thought that by the time I grew up, everything would be fine for women. I am now turning 53 this summer, and it's still not fine. And it's not even fine for my daughter's generation. So we got to get this done. But I do know that, women entrepreneurs still face, and, racialized entrepreneurs, racialized women entrepreneurs still face real barriers in access to capital. And so there are specific funds set aside in the budget to support women entrepreneurs, racialized entrepreneurs. And I want you and your friends to know about that, and to know there is the support to go out there and build great businesses. And I'm going to mention one other thing. And you are all so young that you may roll your eyes when I say this. But I think a very important measure in the budget for precisely you guys, for your peer group, is the commitment to early learning and childcare. We commit in the budget to spend $30 billion, it's a huge amount of money, that within 5 years, everyone across Canada will have access to high quality childcare for $10 a day. And I say you may roll your eyes at me, because you're probably, most of you, too young to be thinking about yourselves as parents. But 5 years from now, you might be. And 10 years from now, you might be. And my commitment to you is that system of high quality early learning and childcare is going to be there for you. It's going to make your lives much more affordable. Talk to older brothers or sisters or cousins about how expensive and hard to get childcare is. And especially for the young women here listening, I don't want any of you to ever feel you have to choose between a career and having a family. I think you have the right to do both if that's what you choose. And we're going to build a system to make it really, really, well, I was going to say easy to do. That's a lie. It is never easy to be a parent of a young child, but to make it as easy as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Navia. Next, we've got Mavi from Intent Coffee.
Hi, I'm with my business partner and my best friend Reika now. I wasn't sure she was gonna come in, but she's here now. So she's gonna
What's her
introduce
name?
herself. Reika.
Reika?
Yes.
Okay, hi Reika. And Mavi, you said something so interesting. You told us the Filipino word for they, them when you
Sha.
introduced yourself. What is it?
Sha.
Sha?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Please carry on. Sorry for interrupting. I was just
Oh, no
interrupting.
problem.
No worries at all. So, hi, thank you for having us here. My name is Reika, and the pronouns I use are they, she, and sha. I am 23 years old, and I identify as a queer, brown, first-generation immigrant based in Amiskwaci, Waskaikan, Treaty 6 here in Edmonton, Alberta. I moved here when I was 15 years old, and I was in the woodworking trades for about 5 years. And I am now transitioning to working at Intent full time. So doing community work along with Mavi and the rest of our team and the rest of our community.
Yes. So hi, my name is Navi. My pronouns are they, them, sha. I'm 24 years old, and just like Reika, I'm also queer, brown, first generation Filipino immigrants here in Treaty 6. I moved here when I was 13 in 2011, so it's been 10 years now. Yes, 10 years. I'm a co-owner of the newly opened youth and QC BIPOC operated coffee shop called Intent Coffee here in Southgate Center. So Rick and I were high school friends, and we've always wanted to open a community space where we can hire from our community for our community. So we have a vision of creating equitable, inclusive, and sustainable livelihoods, and in turn creating more fulfilling and more uplifted communities here where we are. So we focus on employing marginalized youth from our local communities here in Edmonton. When we were starting, it was hard for us to look for capital and funding in general because most banks require us to have assets, and they don't have those assets. We don't own cars, we don't own titles to land or anything. So it was really hard. One time we were asking for just a credit card. They also required us to have 3 times as much in assets to get the funding that we need. But the reason why we're asking for funding is because we don't have those. As a newly opened business, we're also not eligible for any of the federal COVID-19 business financial aids, like the subsidy for wage and rent, and most of the financial aids by the federal government. We were eligible for the SMERG, the Small Medium Enterprise Relaunch Grant by the government of Alberta, but this third rollout for their spring term, a lot of businesses were eligible, but it's been months. It's been months. We were waiting for our funding to get approved and actually receive the money, so that's been hard on us. So we've been financially struggling to sustain the advancement of our vision for months now, and we're at the brink of closing down actually, which is sad. But we're gonna keep going. So a lot of organizations are also in the same situation as us. So I guess our question is, what will the government do to fill in these gaps?
Okay. Excellent question. And thanks for being so ambitious and bold and entrepreneurial. How wonderful. I want to give you guys a chance to advertise though. So tell me what drinks and foods you serve. Just a couple things.
Yes, so we serve Filipino pastries, and we also specialize in offering Filipino specialty coffee that is directly sourced and indigenous grown from the Philippines. And I think we're the first ones to actually like serve it here, which is we're extremely proud of. We also sell Philippine chocolates and local goods from like local makers and artists as well to help our community members earn some money during this time when a lot of our fellow youth are not employed. So we also give them a chance to display their products here and sell them.
And eventually, we are also looking into expanding our coffee to the people, which is coffee education to coffee consumers here and educating them on how big a role they play to make sure that the whole chain of coffee is supported and is um, sustainable.
Okay, wow, wonderful. And you're in the Southgate Mall, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I can't go to the Southgate Mall, but everyone who's in Edmonton, these guys sound amazing. The food sounds great. I think everyone should go check them out. So look, I really do I cheer you guys. It is so great to be entrepreneurial. And it is so great that you're wanting to be, that you are being entrepreneurial in a way to support each other and your community. I can only imagine how hard it has been to do this after COVID started. Very brave and well done for surviving. I want you guys to feel very optimistic right now. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I see the forecasts of a lot of economists, and there is a really strong conviction around the idea that we're going to have an economy that comes roaring back over the summer. We've been talking a lot about the unequal impact of COVID, but part of the story is there are a lot of people who actually spent less than they usually do during COVID. So a lot of people saved money during COVID. And there is a lot of pent up demand to just go out. So I want you guys to feel the confidence of being very well positioned to take advantage of that Canada, Edmonton coming roaring back. There are some programs to help you do that. I'm not going to list them all because it would be quite boring for everyone who doesn't run a small business, but I'll list a few. I would urge you to take a look at the small business financing program. That once we pass the budget, that's going to be expanded. And the credit terms will be easier. So you'll be able to take a loan of up to $500,000. You guys might not be quite at that stage yet, for a term of 15 years. We also have a very important tax credit that you should look at, which will allow the immediate expensing of up to $1.5 million a year for this year and 2 years after that. That's to encourage people like you guys to invest in yourselves right now to take advantage of this coming economic upswing. There is also, maybe of particular interest to you guys, a small business and entrepreneurship development program. There's more than $100 million there, and that is specifically to help visible minorities and women entrepreneurs, people who, as you guys described, you had difficulties getting access to capital, helping that group get access to capital. There's a women's entrepreneurship strategy with around 150 million specifically to support women entrepreneurs. We have a new or a recapitalized regional development agency specifically for the prairies. Go talk to them. They might have some ideas and programs specifically for you. And then I can't resist saying two more things. A program that I am very excited about is the Digital Adoption Program. This will provide micro grants and specific and advisors to come help you adopt new technologies to make yourselves more productive. doesn't exist yet, but it could really help you if you want to create online platforms and stuff. And it sounds as if you guys really do. And then finally, you seem to be already very internationally involved with trade. So I would encourage you to take a look at what are the opportunities our trade team has to help Canadian small businesses involved in international trade. And bravo, bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This definitely made us feel better that there are programs that are coming our way. So we're going to survive.
Yeah.
And
You
thrive.
will. I have total just meeting you virtually, I have total confidence in you. And I'm sure your Filipino pastries are delicious.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mavi and Rekha. And we now have our final panelist, and then we'll get to some questions. I know you all submitted some. So our final panelist is Angela from Future Creators and U Alberta ICE.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Chrystia. I'm so excited to be here speaking to everyone. My name is Angela Wang. I just finished my 4th year of electrical engineering at the University of Alberta, going into my final year. And I am the president and founder of Future Creators, which is a edutech nonprofit group that inspires future technology innovators by providing youth with free resources, knowledge, and mentorship to build their own technology projects. So Future Creators has had to go fully virtual due to the pandemic, but we've still been doing really well. And it's been really exciting to see all of our mentees, which is over 200 mentees so far all across Canada. And we've helped them build everything from Bluetooth cars to robot arms to solar chargers and machine learning projects. So it's been a lot of fun and really exciting. And we've been very happy to keep managing things and keeping it going even during COVID. And I guess for my question, I want to touch on a bit about the science and technology side of things that we're facing now with COVID. I think we've really noticed that science and innovation has played a significant role when it comes to solving problems that are faced not only by Canadians, but by everyone all over the world, which I think COVID made that pretty clear. And as we start to move towards a post-pandemic world, hopefully, fingers crossed, and we find ourselves facing these increasingly important issues that rely on science and technology to find solutions. And these issues include things like other diseases, climate change, access to clean water, and so many more. So how will the government support and encourage the pursuit of STEM innovation, especially among young people and for underrepresented groups such as women?
Well, great question, Angela. And thank you for your excellent work. And thank you for being a young woman in STEM. It's so, so important. And we still have a lot of work to do in ensuring that girls and young women see math and sciences as an area where they can excel. So thanks for your example. And I'm sure there are some doors that you've had to kind of kick to get them to open for you. And I'm glad you've done that. And I can see you're doing that for other young women too. Look, I totally agree with the premise of your question. I think, COVID has been a tragedy for the world, and it would have been even more of a tragedy without amazing scientists. The speed with which vaccines have been invented and manufactured and deployed is unprecedented. And when we look back, history is going to say, wow, that was astonishing. I think we as Canadians probably don't know enough the extent to which Canadian science and innovation has played a role in vaccines. Some of you, we heard that Maz has been vaccinated. Maybe he was vaccinated with Pfizer. I don't know. You guys are younger than me, so you wouldn't have had AstraZeneca. But if he or any of you guys were vaccinated with Pfizer, you should know that there is a really important Canadian component in the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, made by a company called Acuitas in Vancouver, the nanolipid which delivers that vaccine. So Canadian science is quite literally saving our lives right now. And I agree with your thesis, Angela, that Canadian science and Canadian innovation is our future. I think that we need to focus on a few things. One, we need to fund education. I've talked already about the investments our government has made to make it easier for all of you who are in university or college or in places like NAIT to get your education. We need to support students. We're doing that. We need to fund our universities as well. And you guys in Edmonton are so lucky to be in a city that has the U of A, which is an outstanding university that does amazing work. Our government has made, since 2015, huge investments in science, in universities, in basic research. And I really believe as a country, we need to continue to do that. The budget includes significant additional investments in that science and research. Something, Angela, that you will have heard so often, it will make you roll your eyes, because this is kind of one of the tropes of the Canadian policy discussion in this area, is that as Canadians, we're not always so great at going from the invention to the commercialization. See, are you nodding your head?
Yeah.
Have you spent like hours and hours and hours talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to get better at that. And part of the way to do that is to have more resources to do exactly the kind of work that you're doing, Angela, to support young entrepreneurs. We've talked already in this conversation about the barriers in access to capital, especially for women and racialized Canadians. And so the budget has some programs specifically providing support there. And maybe the one other, I'll point to three other things very quickly. I think Elise talked about Edmonton and the green convictions of Edmonton youth. I know that. And I want to really encourage all of you to look at opportunities in the green, clean tech sector. There are some big hydrogen projects recently announced for Edmonton. That's great. We're doing a consultation right now on a carbon capture, utilization, and storage tax credit, which I think is going to unlock so many economic opportunities in Alberta, in Edmonton. So, all you engineers out there, take a look at that space, please. And then we have a venture capital catalyst initiative fund, which the budget has added to. And that's another place for you guys to look at. And I can't resist. I'm going to say two more very quick things, okay? This $1.5 million for this year and 2 years after that of expensing that businesses can do. This is a really powerful incentive for Canadian businesses to do something that we need to do more of, which is investing in yourself, investing in productivity improvements. So, and it's a use it or lose it thing. It's available for 3 years and that's it. So I say to you, I say to all the people you work with, now's the time to start that business and take advantage of these opportunities. And then this digital adoption program that I talked about, it will provide micro grants and advice for small businesses like the one that Mavi has set up. And then it will provide bigger loans and advice for medium-sized enterprises that want to adopt new technologies to make themselves more productive. So we're going to have a real focus on entrepreneurship, on small businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, and on science and innovation, and on getting women and racialized Canadians in there.
For sure. That's really great to hear, especially all of the green initiatives that are actually being introduced in Edmonton locally, which is amazing. Can't wait to find out more about that. And I'm sure my engineering friends will be excited as well. And it's great to hear that there's lots of support in place for science and technology, because it really is something that's probably going to be increasingly important in the coming years. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time as well.
Really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela. So we are past our time. So if any of the panelists need to leave, that's totally okay. Thank you so much for joining us. But for you, Chrystia, I was hoping that you might be okay to stick around to just answer a few of the audience questions that we...
100%. How could I not? That would be very bad of me not to.
Awesome. So we've got two that we're going to highlight. And for those of you who ask questions, because we have 12 questions, and I know some people submitted prior. So if your question doesn't get answered, there will be an email popped into the chat that you can send your question to get it answered. So please do that. But I'm going to ask them both at the same time so that you can note them and answer them. And hopefully that'll save us some time. So the first question was from Kabir, and he said, during the COVID-19 pandemic, not only global youth, but also the global energy sector has experienced numerous downturns. As the world recovers from the pandemic, there is a huge opportunity to build back better and accelerate the clean energy transition. Right now, we are seeing a huge gap in skilled workers in the clean energy sector, and I worry that this will be a bottleneck in achieving Canada's climate targets. What is the Canadian government doing to ensure Canadian youth are empowered to pursue green jobs? And then the second question was submitted by Rowan, who said, a lot of my friends who are graduating, even those who have good jobs, are worried that they will never be able to afford a home as housing prices keep spiraling up, especially if they live in Ontario and BC, but their income is too high to qualify for any housing supports. How can we make housing more affordable for our generation?
Okay, so thank you, Kabir. Thank you, Rowan. Those are two excellent questions, and actually very much at the heart of, our focus and things we're thinking about and working on. So on clean energy, I really believe, guys, that I think history is going to look back on 2021, yes, as the year when we finished the fight against COVID, but also as the year that the global economy really made a decisive turn towards a clean economy. And that has huge consequences. That is a huge transition. I was at the G7 2 weeks ago, and the German finance minister framed it, I thought, very well. He said, this is the biggest economic transformation for the world since the original industrial revolution. So think about that for a minute. This is a huge, huge change. And by the way, the Industrial Revolution brought with it quite a bit of social and political turbulence. So we need to think about ways to be sure to get it right. But to Kabir's sort of jobs point, I really see this green transition as a huge economic opportunity for Canada. And since I am virtually in Edmonton, a great economic opportunity for Edmonton and Alberta. Just because of our geology, Alberta is extremely well positioned to be the world leader in carbon capture, storage, and utilization. So that whole space is a place where Alberta can lead and excel. And I mentioned the hydrogen project. I see huge opportunities there for Alberta too. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We are investing very significantly, the federal government, in the green transition. I've talked a little bit about that carbon capture, storage, and utilization tax credit. Another important element is our Net Zero Accelerator, which has $8 billion in it to fund projects in this transition. Something else, and I see Cecile on my screen, and this makes me think of Nate. We're making really significant investments in home retrofits to support people who want to make their homes more energy efficient. And from my perspective, this is a triple win. It's a way to reduce Canada's GHG emissions. It's a way to make life more affordable for Canadians because your energy bill will go down. And it's going to create a lot of jobs doing the retrofit. So Cecile, please talk to your instructor colleagues at NATE and say to them, let's be training the Canadians who have in the skilled trades who know how to do home retrofits, because there is going to be a boom there in Canada very, very soon. And Kabir, look, we do need to be sure that we have people with the skills. I spoke right at the beginning to Cecile's question about all of the investments we're making, you know, to make it more affordable for young people to go and get that training. And we're also making significant investments to be sure the apprenticeship opportunities and the first job opportunities are there, so that, you know, that can be a big gap, right? A big challenge from getting your skill to getting that first job. And we're trying to fill that. Okay, and then Rowan, housing. Yes, huge, huge, huge issue. The budget, we spoke a little bit about this in response to Levi's question about urban Indigenous youth. And I think that is a part of that, a big part of the housing challenge. And I talked about some of the work that Don Iveson is doing. I really think that ensuring that housing is affordable for all Canadians, especially young Canadians, especially people starting families, and that people who want to buy a home can afford to do that, is a huge economic priority, and it's a social priority too. So the budget has really significant investments in housing, in affordable housing, in rental construction. There's a really interesting program in there to support the construction of vacant downtown office space into apartments. So I'm really excited about that, because I think we may see post-COVID that our patterns of work change. And so this is a way to take advantage of that. But Rowan, what I want to say to you is, I think there is a lot more work to do. One of the great things, Elise started off by talking about how Edmonton is young and how Edmonton is growing. And both of those things are true. And I think both of those things are great. It's one of the things that makes Edmonton such a vibrant, kind of bubbly place. But if you have a growing population, you need to build more homes for more Canadians. And so I really think we need a concerted national strategy that is going to involve cities, provinces, the federal government working together to ensure we are building homes for a growing country. And that's what we're going to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chrystia. So as I mentioned, if you didn't get your question answered, which I know several of you didn't, you are able to email that. The email was put in the chat, but just in case you missed it, it's Hannah, HANNAH.Wilson, WILSON @canada.ca. Thank you, Hannah. And I will pass it up back to you, Chrystia, for some closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, well, look, and is this closing, or are more people going to say goodbye after I'm finished?
My understanding is it's closing.
Okay, good. So, you know, in that case, let me just say thank you very much, guys. It has been really inspiring and energizing for me to meet you all virtually. I have felt your energy through the screen. I'm so as someone who is proud of Edmonton, I'm so proud to see all of you representing Edmonton. This diverse group of energetic, caring, innovative, entrepreneurial, idealistic young Canadians. How great you are, and what a great future for Edmonton and for Canada you represent. I do want to say, what I started, I want to just lean into 3 things I said at the beginning. We have so much work to do fighting Islamophobia and white supremacy. And, especially to the Muslim women of Edmonton, I want to say to you, I know that. And we're going to work together with you and together with, everyone in this conversation on that. I do also want to say to you, Levi, you raised some really important points. And Kamloops has been a tragic reminder to all of us of all the work we need to continue to do on reconciliation. And I want to say to all of you young people, we need, you really made such a disproportionate sacrifice during COVID. And we need to support you in the recovery because we owe it to you. And the we I'm speaking for now is older people in the country. Your parents' generation, maybe I represent, because we owe it to you, but also because we need you to succeed. Canada is going to come roaring back in large part because you guys are going to come roaring back. And I can sort of feel your energy fizzing and bubbling through this screen. So I know you're going to do it. It's a privilege for me to be able to provide you with some of the support measures that are in the budget that I talked about in this conversation. And it's just so meaningful for me to talk to all of you. I meant to say right at the beginning that I'm in awe of all of you. I have a specific reason to be in awe of Elise because I believe she is a shumka dancer, which is something I was never a good enough dancer to do, but is another very inspiring, is another example of the great creativity and community involvement that I have heard on this call. So have a wonderful weekend. Bon fin de semaine. I'm going to say дякую дуже. Really, really nice to meet all of you. And I hope I have a chance soon to meet you in person. Bye.